right.
So
welcome
Thank
to Beale to Bourbon, deep down in the Mississippi Delta. This show is really centered. I make just a brief nod to the ancestors over here to the left, thinking about the continent over here, the journey over here from the transatlantic. But we land in the deep south where I was born and raised. In the show, you're gonna have a full range of my creative expression, from painting, mixed media, photo montage, sculpture, installation, and there are times when I even break out into a performance on a piece that I wrote called Artie's Back Room. Now, one thing that's pretty beautiful and unique is that the photographs that are used a little over 2 weeks ago, we had this lady come in. She was in like 92 years old, right. And she had this box of photographs, and she said, listen, my friend left these behind. I want to honor her memory. I don't want to destroy them. And something just told me to come here to see if somebody could use them. And I'm like, you came to the perfect place, right? Now,
did she come see this exhibition?
She hadn't seen it yet. No. Hopefully she's going to come back. So basically around 70% of the photographs that are used are from the photographs that I got from her.
Wow.
But while
some of them are hand colored too, hand painted.
Like that one?
Yeah, that one there.
Maybe the green one too?
Yeah.
Now the other thing too that's incorporated in this section is some of my finds, but even my works that are influenced by vintage photography. So like this picture right here is Satiria's mother, Dr. Smella Lewis right there, Satiria right there, Driscoll, Eugene, Patrick Oliver, Charlie Palmer. These are all pieces that I'm using Photoshop to do a contemporary interpretation of a tintype or daguerreotype.
Yes.
You know, and so that's also incorporated in this particular narrative alone.
Beautiful.
Thank you. And so this is the first time when, like, this is like my signature Robert Johnson from many years ago appears in the piece. It's one of my earlier photo montage works. So at the crossroads, life's a journey, you know, one generation to the next, familiar story. So when I do the crossroads in Robert Johnson, I'm not using in my earlier days, I used the actual image of Robert Johnson. I got away from that quickly because for me, the Robert Johnson story is an every man, every woman story about coming to a crossroads in life and having to make life decisions. And so this is a continuation of that story across many generations. In the foreground, you've got my use of found materials. Can't hit the crossroads without a little gin in your pocket, a little hoop. And we got the installation of the juke joint over here. And it's a combination of my blues people portfolio, a piece that I did. I was a featured artist that's more New Orleans inspired centered around jazz. Last year I was a featured artist at the Atlanta Jazz Festival.
That's right, I remember.
Yeah.
It was great.
But the piece,
you did their poster too.
I did. They ended up using that work for the poster. But the piece in the middle is titled Liberty Legends. When I had my first major majority museum solo show at the Columbus Museum, they asked me to do a piece centered around Columbus history. And then that's why I created that piece. Maul Rainey is from Columbus, famous blues musician. So in this section, a lot of the men in my work, throughout my work, I always use Dandyism as a style of dress to elevate the conversation against how oftentimes media portrays black people. So this section here, you got Peacock Jones right there, you got my Robert Johnson, and then you got Cool Breeze, all of them dressed in this dandy style. Particularly in the photo montage, I would incorporate the vintage photographs or the family photographs on the wall. And so with this section, and I'm also a hunter-gatherer, like I'm drawn to what's old, not only in terms of photography, but just like the old radio, the daguerreotype pieces, the old iron. So I'm just kind of gathering these things, not necessarily knowing a particular use. I just want them kind of in my space, right? And so in this piece, I'm having a conversation about how the music migrated out of New Orleans, because in the rail car, you got Congo Square here, the music traveling the railroad cars traveling north to like Kansas City, and the historic 18th and Vine is the historic jazz district. I actually shot the photograph of some buildings that were kind of in disarray, but Mutual Musicians Foundation was the first, from what they say, the first union hall for musicians to make sure they got equal pay. And this is a vintage photograph from that period. But even within this piece, tucked in the corner, in the shadows, I've got Robert Johnson and the crossroads, you know, with his guitar, you know, so the influence, so that story continues. And Black Bottom Blues, the title itself is a nod to Ma Rainey. But again, at the crossroads, multiple musicians, multiple generations. Papa Legba is there, and the Fireflies in the piece with the juke joint in the back. Deep down in the Mississippi Delta, this piece is a little different because this was the first time with this figure that I incorporate the banjo, and the banjo is put there purposely because of the African influence of the string instruments on the use of the creation of the banjo here in America, and just to have that conversation. The first time I used this character was in a large painting with the banjo, and the piece was titled "When William Slim Tucker Discovered the Crossroads." Now, I was inspired because Kerry James Marshall did a piece. It was just a silhouette of a black face, and he named it William Tucker, and he named it that because he said it was the first recorded birth of an African American in this country from 2 enslaved Africans. So that's the first name. And so for me, I took that history and did a story. William Tucker Discovered the Crossroads, because the crossroads of African culture coming to America is the crossroads, and the banjo representing that culture over here in the States with the string instruments. So that's how I take it.
Yeah.
When we go home, we always go back to familiar grounds to reconnect with, you know, history. So here she comes back after going off and becoming successful, reconnecting with the family land, the family business. But the quilt reminds her of grandma's quilt and how she grew up, her childhood with the teddy bear. The birds in flight represent her, you know, moving on and coming back and still remember where she come from. But even in this is a small installation. I put the quilt that, you know, here for the seating to kind of tie in to this section here.
Because when I saw this, you know, without knowing that story, I was able to relate to it personally. Because there have been so many different crossroads professionally, you know.
This section here focuses on the interior. In the interior, you're going to find certain iconography within the work, like the potbelly stove. For me, it's a nod to my mom and my parents and grandparents in the era that they grew up in.
Where did they grow up?
Arkansas and Blytheville, Arkansas, and St. Louis and Turrell, Arkansas, which is a really remote town. But my mom often talked about when she was growing up, she considered herself to be like the black sheep of the family. Why? Because while she was not the oldest and she was not the male, she was the one that had to help my grandmother all the time. Like get up early in the morning and go gather the firewood and use that firewood for the potbelly stoves. And so the potbelly stoves became something that you would find in a lot of my work that's representative of the South. And I've got it across multiple mediums from my mixed media work, as well as in this piece right here, celebrating just the everyday life of black love. And so passing up the love of music from one generation to the next, I actually created the figure and photo montage. When I do my photo montage work, there's hundreds of layers to build the rooms, but I incorporate vintage, which I talked about. But we pass by the landscapes and then pass by Dandy's, and we finish up with black love. Yeah, so this is the couple's wall. Yeah, so that's the.
This is extraordinary, you know.